Hi, grade 8s. Welcome to week 2. After going over your assignments, most of you are understanding the basics of what powers are and how to work with them. Just a reminder, please, the only number that gets multiplied out is the base. The power itself, or the exponent, is how many times you multiply the base out. So some people are having some issues with that still. Also, please, that's my cat Jake. Also, please remember when you're typing it, probably the best way of writing it, just so you don't get confused, is to use the little caret symbol if you can't figure out how to actually do an exponent. But there is a way to do the exponent both in class notebooks and in Word. So if you want me to tell you how to do that, just message me and I'll show you how to do that. But the easiest way probably is just to use the little caret symbol. On my keyboard, it's above the 6 button at the top, on the top row. So I just use that to indicate that what the number that comes after that caret is the exponent. Okay, so just a few little things about last week. But most of you that submitted have a very good understanding of exponents and what they mean. So this week we're going to go on to using exponents and order of operations. So the first thing we need to do is a bit of review on multiplying integers. Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen right now is sort of the shortcut to multiplying integers, because I don't have time to go over the whole thing. So just remember that if the signs are the same, the answer is positive, okay, for two numbers. If the signs are different, the answer is negative, okay, for two integers. So if I have -2 times -3, 2 times 3 is 6, but because they're both the same, it's actually going to end up being +6, okay? And if I have 2 times -3, it's still 6, but the difference is there's only one negative, or there's two different signs, so the answer is negative, okay? This one you can think of as two groups of -3, right? So -3 plus -3, which would indeed be -6, okay? This one, if you wanted to think about it, is the same thing, two groups of -3, but then it's the opposite of that, okay? That's what that extra negative sign means. So this is a chart that you probably want to write down, okay? So two positives make a positive when you're multiplying. That's what it means when they're smushed up against each other like that, right? That means multiply. A positive times a negative will give you a negative. And negative times a positive, remember, these two are going to end up being the same because there's no difference, right? In multiplication, which one comes first, is also going to give you a negative. And then negative times negative will give you a positive. That's where a lot of you, when we were doing adding, would say, don't two negatives make a positive? That's where a lot of people get confused. It's only in multiplication that two negatives make a positive, okay? So this chart is very important, okay? So make sure you have this chart down somewhere, please. So let's take a look at what this means. 3 times -4 is 3 groups of -4. So the way I do this is I just ignore the signs to begin with. I do 3 times 4 is 12, and then I look at the signs. Well, there's one of each, and if you remember back to our chart on the page previous, a negative and a positive, my answer is always going to be negative. Over here in B, I have 2 times 5 is 10. And then I have 2 of the same. I have a negative and a negative, so my answer is going to be positive. Remember, you don't have to write that positive sign, okay? So negative 3 times 2, so 3 times 2 is 6. The signs are different, so my answer is negative. D, 2 times 7 is 14. The signs are different, so it's negative. Okay, now this also holds true when there's more than one number that you're multiplying or integer that you're multiplying. So again, same thing. 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. But the question is my answer going to be negative or positive? Well, when I do this, I just start at the beginning and start figuring out towards the end. So negative 2 and negative 3, those are both negatives, right? So that becomes a positive times a positive. Positive times a positive will always give me positive answer. For question B, 3 times 5 is 15, times 2 is 30, times 4 is 120. So same thing, negative 3 and positive 5 is going to give me a negative, times a negative actually ends up giving me a positive, times a negative gives me a negative. Okay, down at the bottom. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to do this a little differently. 2 times 5 is 10. Times 10 is 100, times 3 times 7 is 21. So 21 times 100 is 2,100. Now the question is, what's the sign going to be? So negative times negative is positive, times a negative ends up being a negative, times a negative gives me a positive, times a negative gives me a negative, times a negative gives me a positive. So my answer is going to be positive 2,100. Okay. Notice, please, how many negatives are in A? There are 2 negatives. There are 3 negatives in B. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negatives in C. There is a pattern when you're multiplying and the number of negatives. That's why I'm pointing this out. Okay. So here's the pattern. Each time we multiply by a negative number, we change the sign of the product. So having an even number of negative terms makes the product positive, while an odd number of negative terms makes the product negative, right? So even negatives, your answer will be positive. Odd negatives, your answer will be negative. Now remember, even is 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on, right? Odd is 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Okay, sorry, I'll put my dots there. Okay, so that helps. So all you have to do is count up how many negatives you have, and that tells you what your answer is going to be. Okay, if there are no negatives, then your answer will always be positive. So let's take a look at what this means in terms of putting it together in a in an expression. So in A, we have 3 subtract 7 plus 2. Remember, please, order of operations. Come here. Okay. Order of operations says that I have to do brackets first. So in this case, I'm going to do these brackets first. So I get 3 minus 7 plus 2 is 9. 3, take away 9. So I start at 3, move 9 to the left. I'm going to end up with 6 negative. Okay. Or you can look at it as positive 3 and negative 9. What do I have more of? I have more negatives. How many more negatives? I have 6 more negatives. Okay. B, there are no brackets. So I move on to exponents. There are no exponents. There's no division or multiplication. So all I do is addition and subtraction as it comes. So I'm going to do 3 minus 7 first. So again, positive 3 and negative 7. I have more negatives. How many more negatives do I have? 4 plus 2. So again, same process. I have negative 4 and I have positive 2. I have more negatives. How many more negatives? 2 of them. Okay, brackets are important here, right? Same numbers, very different answers. So in C, 8 times 3 minus 5, multiplication first, always. So 8 times 3, 24, take away 5, 19. Over here, brackets first. So 8 times 3 minus 5, that's positive 3 and negative 5. What do I have more of? I have more of the negatives. So, and I have 2 more. So now I'm multiplying. How many negatives do I have? I have 1, which is odd. So I'm going to have, my answer is going to be negative. 8 times 2, 16. In E, I'm going to scroll down a little here. Whoops, there's an F too. Woo-hoo. I'm going to move, oh, I can't move F. Okay, we'll do E first. So first bracket I hit is the first bracket I'm going to do. So I get 8 minus 6 plus 3 times negative 2 minus 8 divided by, whoops, that's not a very good divided by symbol, is it? So let's get that right. Divided by negative 2. So now the next thing, I've done my brackets, so there are no more brackets in my equation. So now I look for multiplication, and I do have multiplication. So 8 minus 6 plus 3 times 2 is 6. How many negatives in there? 1, so my answer is negative. Subtract 8 divided by negative 2. That's division. I can do multiplication and division at the same time. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then 1 negative in there, so it's a negative. Now I'm going to put brackets around there so I don't get confused with my subtract and my negative. Okay. Next thing, so I've done multiplication and division. Next thing is addition. So I do the first addition that I have, which is actually subtraction. 8 subtract 6 is 2 plus negative 6 subtract negative 4. So 2 plus negative 6, what do I have more of? I have more negatives, so I'm going to have, my answer is going to be negative, and the difference is 4. Subtract negative 4, okay, and 4 subtract negative 4, or sorry, negative 4 subtract negative 4, right? It's the same thing, subtracting the same thing is 0. Okay, so I'm going to try and extend my page here. And let's try the next one. So again, order of operations. $15 divided by negative 3 times negative 4 minus 3 times 2 minus 4. So order of operations says I do brackets first. The only operations in brackets are here. So everything else stays the same. 15 divided by negative 3 times negative 4 minus 3 times 2 minus 4. Positive 2, subtract 4. means I'm going to be left with 2 negative. Okay, then, so I've done my brackets. So then I don't have any exponents to worry about. So now I look for division or multiplication. Well, I've got this division. So I'll do that first. 15 divided by -3. Well, 15 divided by 3 is 5. There's 1 negative, so it's -5. Then everything else still stays the same. Next, I have to look for the next either division or multiplication. So I've got multiplication. 5 times 4 is 20. And there are 2 negatives in there, so it's going to be positive. Then I have subtract 3 times -2. So now my options are subtraction or multiplication. I have to do multiplication first. So I'm going to have 20. Subtract 3 times 2 is 6. There's 1 negative in there, so it's -6. So I have 20 subtract -6. Now I've taught my students when you have subtract a negative, it actually gets changed to add the opposite. So this is 26. So just a reminder, order of operations. You must do operations in brackets first. Then you must simplify exponents. Then you do multiplication and division. And always, the last thing you do is addition and subtraction, unless it's in a bracket. Okay. Just a reminder for what we covered last week, a power stands for repeated multiplication. Okay, so come here. 4 to the 5th power is actually 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, right? Just a reminder. All right, this is super important. So I need you to really focus on this. These two expressions are two different things. Remember, the power applies to what it is touching. Okay? So in this case, the power applies to the whole bracket because it's touching the bracket. In this case, the power is only touching the 4. So it's only +2 to the exponent 4. The -1 gets multiplied at the end. Okay, so it's a very important distinction that if you see a power with brackets, it's the bracket that gets multiplied out. If there is no bracket, it is only the number that gets multiplied out, not the sign. Okay. So an exponent with a power, and the base is a bracket, then the entire bracket gets multiplied out that number of times. If there is no bracket, then it's only the number that the power is touching that gets multiplied out. Super, super important, please. So let's try this. Order of operations with exponents. So I'm going to write up here. Come on, there we go. I'm going to write up here just so we have the reminder. Okay. So no brackets, but we do have an exponent. So we're going to do that first. 3 times, if you want, you can write it out to help you remember. Okay. 3 times 25, which is 75. I'd put brackets around it so you know to do it first. Okay. So over here in B, same thing. put brackets around it so you know you're going to do that first. That's 1,000 divided by 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 is 125. Sorry, I didn't need those extra brackets. 250 4 times. Oh, come on. Somebody help me out here. It's early in the morning, guys. Sorry, I need a calculator. 1,000 divided by 125 gives me 8 times. There we go. Sorry. Gives me 8. Okay. Over here, do this exponent first. So 3 times 3 is 9 minus, now this is what I was talking about. The exponent is touching the bracket, so it's the whole bracket that is used, oops, that is used as a base. So I have 9 minus, how many negatives do I have? Negative. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8, so negative 8. And again, add the opposite, so I get 17. Here, the exponent is only touching the 4, so it's negative 1 times 4 times 4 times 4 divided by negative 2 times negative 2. Right? See the difference? The 2 is touching the bracket, the 3 is only touching the 4. So I get negative 1 times 16 times 4 is 64 divided by negative 2 times negative 2. There are 2 negatives, so it's going to be 4. Order of operations says I do whatever comes first, so I get negative 64 divided by 4, which is 16. So 64 divided by 4 is 16. There's one negative in there, so my answer should be negative. Okay, some more. First thing we're going to do, yes, put it, come on, put it up here just as a reminder. Okay, exponents first. Yes, there's a bracket, but there's nothing to do in that bracket, so I ignore it until I need it. So 3 plus 4 squared is 16. Subtract, please tell me that was a subtract, sorry. It's the only problem with doing this. Oh, nope, it's divide. There we go. So divide by negative 2. So I'm going to do division next. So 3 plus 16 divided by 2 is 8. 1 negative. So the answer is negative. 3 plus negative 8. There's more negatives, so my answer is going to be negative, and the difference between them is 5. F, exponent first, so it's going to be 1,000 divided by negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 means there's 3 negatives, right? And that the easy way of doing that is your power tells you how many negatives there's going to be. So there's 3 negatives, so my answer, that's odd, so my answer is negative. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. The answer is going to be negative, and can someone get that answer before me? The answer will be negative 125. Okay. Down here, the first thing we're going to do is the power. Notice the power is only touching the 3. Okay. So what I have is 7 minus 3 squared is 9 times negative 2. So I'm going to do 7 minus 9 times negative 2. Notice this is a subtract sign, not a negative sign. Okay, a lot of people get confused with that. Just slow it down and look at the expression, okay? It can't be 7, -9. That doesn't make any sense. There has to be an operation between the two numbers. So it is 7 subtract +9. So I have +9 times -2, which becomes -18. One negative, answer is negative. Again, subtraction can be rewritten as add the opposite. So I get 25. H, no exponents, yay. So then I move on to brackets. There's only one number in brackets, so I don't need to worry about that. There are no exponents. So then I move on to division and multiplication. There is division first. So 12 divided by -4. Well, 12 divided by 4 is 3, 1 negative. Then times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 negative, -15. Okay. You always, always, always do inside the brackets first, even before powers. Okay. So if you have this expression, you have to do inside the bracket first. So 7 minus 5 is 2 to the third power, 8. Okay. 7 to the third power is 343. Subtract 5 to the third power. 5 times 5 is 25 times 5 is 125. Subtract those two numbers and you get 218. Down here, again, simplify inside the bracket first. 5 subtract 8. You're actually going to get a negative this time, squared. Keep it in the bracket so that you know that the whole thing is being raised to the power. So -3 times -3 is +9. And in D, 5 squared, 25, minus 8 squared, 64. 25 minus 64 is going to give you -39. Excuse me. Sorry, not COVID, just allergies. So here, I'm going to do my brackets first. 5 plus 3 to the 4th minus 10. Then I'm going to do my power. 5 plus 3 to the 4th. 3 times 3 is 9 times basically 9. So 81 minus 10. 86 minus 10. 76. For H, simplify the bracket first. 7 minus 3 is 4 squared times -2. I'll keep the -2 in brackets for you. 4 squared is 16 times -2. 16 times 2 is 32. There's one negative, so my answer is negative. F. Okay, so we've got brackets, so I need to simplify the brackets. These are the innermost brackets, but there's nothing to do with them, so I can ignore them. So now I look at the outermost brackets, and inside the innermost or outermost brackets, I do have an exponent, so I'm going to have 25 times -3. So 3375 divided by 25 times 3. 3 25s is 75. And one of them is negative, or there's one negative, so the answer is negative. So my answer is 135. Again, there's one negative, so the answer is negative. Now this is the exact same numbers, just different brackets. Okay, so this is a bracket, but there's nothing to do, so move on to exponents. There are exponents. So I have 3375 divided by 25 times -3. Order of operations says I do what I hit first, so I'm going to do 3375 divided by 25 is 135 times -3. So I get 405, and since there's one negative, it's negative. Okay. Sometimes there's an expression in the exponent that you need to simplify first. So if we take a look at this, we have to do 8 minus 6 first. So 8 minus 6 is 2. So we get 3 squared, which is 9. Here, we have to do the 6 divided by 2 first. So we get -2 to the third power. 3 negatives is going to be negative, and 2 to the third power is 8. Over here, it's a little more tricky. So we do the 3 minus 2 first. So I get 5, 8 minus 6. Then 8 minus 6 is 2, so we get 25. Simplify the power first. So 7 minus 10, 3 minus 2 is 1, plus 1 is 2. Okay, 7 minus 10 is -3 to the squared will be 9. Over here, brackets in the exponent first, so I keep the base. 4 plus 2 is 6, divided by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. -2 times -2, 2 negatives gives me a positive. Over here, do division first, so -2, 4 plus 1, -2 to the 5. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Since there's an odd number of them, it's going to be -32. Oh my goodness, look at G. All right, so let's do this first. So -8 squared divided by -2 to the 4th times 3 plus 2 to the 4th. So once all my powers are settled down to one number, then I can do order of operations. So basically what you do is you settle your powers first, then do your order of operations as per normal. So order of operations per normal says I have to simplify brackets first. So everything else stays the same. 3 times 2 is 5 to the 4th power. Okay. Then order of operations says I simplify exponents next. So, come here. Come on. -8 squared. -8 times -8. 2 negatives give me a positive. Ah! Stop that. Which gives me 64 divided by -2 to the 4th power. Even power, so that means the answer is going to be positive. 4 times 4 is 16 times 625 for 5 to the 4th power, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125, and then times 5 again. Okay? Then order of operations, multiplication or division. I hit division first, so 64 divided by 16 gives me 4 times 625. 4 times 625 is 2,500. Last one. Give that a try. Did you figure out which one to do first? You are correct. There are 2 exponents, so I would do both exponents at the same time. So I'll do this exponent and I will do that exponent. So I get 25, take away 3 squared is 9, plus 2 times 2 squared is 4. Order of operations says multiplication is what I do next. Order of operations, there's no more multiplication or division, so now I do adding and subtracting. Subtracting is what I hit first. So I get 16 plus 8, 24. Okay? So today's work, or this week's work, is going to take some time. I highly recommend you go slowly through it, and you are going to have to show work this time, okay? You, by all means, when you're working your class notebook, you can just write the answer, but keep in mind, if you get it wrong, I don't know, or whatever teacher's looking at it doesn't know what you did wrong. So if you can, in class notebook, you can do just like I did here. You click on draw, and you can handwrite your answers, although that gets a little messy and big, so you can type your answers. Keep in mind, you can use a little caret symbol for your exponents, but there is a way to actually write them as exponents if you want. Okay, so again, take your time on the homework this week, and good luck. If you need any help, just shout out in the math channel and I will be there as soon as I can. Okay, thanks guys. Have a good week. Happy Easter.